Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for the Making Progress channel, and today's episode is, well, we'll see what Scott the Video Guy titles this, but Elite Superpower is skipping the Freakout. Let's talk about it. So let's talk about overcoming problems. A huge part of life is about overcoming problems. Everybody has problems, bar none. And the existence of problems is the literal genesis of the need to work. Because work is problem solving. Think of any job that you can think of. It's a problem solving job. There are no other kinds of jobs. Unless they're created by the government to employ people for no reason. That's an economic fallacy. It's stupid. But also, at least ostensibly, at least on the face of it, those jobs are looking like they're solving a problem. No problems literally makes work at best an interesting concept, very removed from its normal understanding, or just a non sequitur. Like, what the hell is work? Problems are the genesis of work. And the better you are at solving problems, you as an individual, the better your life is going to be. Almost by definition, because fewer problems kind of means life is better, unless you like problems a lot. And I'll get to that too. We have a hack for that. But the thing is, you don't choose frequency of problems in your life. I wish. Well, I guess you can if you do dumb shit, but not driving drunk and assaulting people at bars and doing things that are just going to bring trouble on purpose. You don't really have a say in when trouble is coming and when you're going to have problems. So they're just going to hit you every now and again. But you do have a major effect, you yourself, on at least 3 key elements involving when problems present themselves to you in your life. You have an effect on how quickly you can solve problems, on how difficult the problems are for you to solve. You can make some problems easier to solve than they could otherwise be, and how completely you solve the problems. Because sometimes people come to you work, they're like, can you get this done? And you're like, yeah, here you go. And it's like a decent solution and it's not so complete. So they'll come back later and be like, you didn't fill out form number 5. But if you solve a problem very completely, it's a better solution and everything is better that way. So you have an effect on how quickly, with how much extra complexity, needless complexity, and how completely you can solve problems that are presented to you without your consent. And here's how most people solve problems in their lives. Not to rip on most people. I'm in this category as well. We're all flawed. No big deal. Most people have a 3-step solution system to problems, or 3-step system to dealing with problems. Step 1 is you detect the problem. Like, oh shit, my homework's missing from, I'm supposed to turn it in tomorrow. Problem. Step 2 is most people develop and express frustration at the problem, at themselves, and at others. So you're like, damn it, where the hell is my homework? Problem, frustration. What the hell did I do with it? I'm such an idiot. Self-frustration. And then mom's like, hey, Connor, are you ready for dinner? You're like, shut up, Mom. Slam the door, hitting up others. That's step 2, expressing frustration. Step 3 is to simmer down, put on your calm logic hat, and actually solve the problem. So we have detection, frustration, solution. Almost everyone does it in these 3 sequential steps. Another quick example, if the teen thing didn't work out. You just submitted your firm's design proposal to a huge company that you're trying to sell your design to for whatever, new product. Yeah, see, it'll fix all the problems you never even had, see? Yeah. They get back to you and they're like, we love the design, but we have to make a few pretty critical modifications to the design before this coming Tuesday. And that's when we present to our internal team. So if you guys can get these things hammered out, that's great. What this means for you as the CEO of the company is that you have to get your design and development team together, and at the 11th hour, mind you, and make potentially whole design modifying changes. Because when you make designs, your development team has to be like, these are realistic and we can make this happen. Or, nope, this is insane, just fantasy nonsense. Like, you can draw this on a diagram, but we don't have the technology or the throughput to make it. So everyone has to be in the mix. This requires a lot of people, and it's a big opportunity for getting really, really, really in a bad place, and it's short time. And you're the CEO. So what do you typically do? You freak out. You call the board. You freak out at the board. They freak out on each other. Everyone's freaking out. And then finally, someone on the board starts calmly writing down what needs to get done, by when, by whom, how long it's going to take, and so on. Once you have that list, and you're like, oh, geez, thanks, Jim, Dick, because you're still pissed. And you look at it and you go, okay, we got a plan. Then you call the engineers, you call the designers, you tell them the situation, you offer them generous bonuses if they come in for basically half a week and kind of live at work, and they crunch it out. Plan in hand, you and your team gets together for half a week, you work more or less straight, you get the job done, the huge firm approves your design, approves your development, gives you millions in funding, you're cooking on easy street. You won, but this process was far from ideal. Far from ideal. Why is it far from ideal? Sounds pretty typical. Because step number 2, the freak out. Remember, detect problem, freak out about problem, work to solve problem. Step 2, the freak out is a gigantic waste of time that does not need to happen. The freak out component, or step 2, calls on an insanely outdated brain system that we have that's been to a large degree unmodified compared to our lizard ancestors. It's the fight or flight system. And that fight or flight system kind of works on the assumption, implicit, not explicit assumption, doesn't know much of anything, it just has reactions. It works on the assumption that your default best toolkit for solving problems in your life is to either beat the shit out of them or run away from them. But in the modern world, the world in which we all occupy, that's 0.1% of all problems. Really, if you stretch it. When's the last time you had to fight someone or run the hell away from crazy danger? It just doesn't happen much anymore. But that used to be the number one problem set, and the 2 best solutions are beat the thing up or run from the thing. Most problems in today's modern world are more mundane and simply a matter of analysis and execution of logical solution procedures. And the resolution of this problem through those logical procedures is greatly, greatly impeded, harmed by frustration and freak out and anger, is just not helping. If you're carrying a boat from the shore, from the beach into the water so you can start rowing, it's you have 5 people helping you carry the boat. One on one side, one on the other, one in the front, one on the other front side, and then one person in the boat as you're trying to pick it up, jumping up and down. Someone doesn't belong. Someone's not helping. That's the freak out. In my experience, in my studies, in my real world experience, in my thinking, to me, it seems like the best problem solvers in the world, in all sectors, have one huge upside very often in common with one another. Sure, they're often more talented, but not always. Sure, they can sometimes see problems coming sooner than others, giving them more lead time for workable solutions, but not always. And sure, a lot of them can work the problem super fast and well once they get their hands on it, but not always. But most often, it seems to me that these people that are ultra successful at solving problems are simply the people that, to a huge extent, sometimes total, sometimes partial, they just skip the freak out. They skip step number 2 entirely. They detect a problem and then calmly deploy solutions to that problem. Guys, this is a next level ability, if you can do it well, that makes a huge difference in your life and very few people have it. So let's talk about how you can work on this ability of yourself to skip the freakout. First thing is it's a spectrum. Your current ability to stay calm in the face of problems is somewhere on the spectrum between a 3-year-old having a temper tantrum, very freak out, to a 67-year-old Buddhist monk who you could like punch in the face and he just goes, ugh. Comes right back. And he's like, what seems to be the problem? And you're like, holy shit. There ain't no fight or flight left in you. And that's really, really awesome. So because everyone's on the spectrum somewhere, and you guys know I'm on the spectrum, there's no talk here today in this video about some BS aiming for perfect. No perfect. Forget perfect. But there can be a lifetime of work that you can set yourself up for of doing better on average with each successive problem of a given magnitude. Better every time. In other words, getting calmer and more logical over time, making step 2, the freakout step, smaller and smaller and smaller over time. The ability to do this takes, in my estimate, 2 factors. One is realization and the other one is practice. Let's talk about them both. First, realization. It really helps, and it helps a lot as the problems grow in magnitude, to deeply, deeply understand how fucking stupid and backwards emotive responses to problems are, using your feelings instead of your logic. There is a recalcitrance to this that people experience. I'll get into that in a little bit. But as an example, almost every step 2, almost every freakout is a misstep. You don't see Navy SEALs and Delta Force operators, best special forces people in the world. You don't see them do the freakout often. When shit hits the fan, these people are the best people in the world. In many cases, it's sticking and moving instead of freaking. I mean, there's bombs blowing up. There's bodies everywhere. There's radio comms is down. We're low on ammo. Guys, each one of these by itself for a regular person is if the world, only the freakout makes sense. SEALs, Delta guys, all special operators, shit happens, they line it up, shoot anyway. Check your ammo. Try to contact radio, try to evac, try to reposition. These are all logical solutions. At no point is it a good idea for a Delta or SEAL guy to be like, ah! And you just almost never see that. These are the best people in the world at what they do. And not by accident. The selection process for all elite special forces groups around the world largely tests your resilience against downward spiraling into step 2. Most selection in elite units, especially basic tier elite units, so for example, just getting into the Navy SEALs, just getting into the Green Berets or the Army Rangers, the selection process for other higher tier units can be a mix of this and also more of a, do you have the technical wherewithal to be there? Because attitude gets you a great way, but if you can't put shots on target, it doesn't really matter. And they're putting you into scenarios in these basic training or this basic vetting process that are designed to frustrate you. They are designed to be overwhelming. They are designed to call on your fight or flight. And the people that make it most often are the ones that go to fight or flight. They go to, what is my next logical step in this process? How am I going to solve it? And then they execute. Because special operations teams cannot afford you losing your shit when bullets are flying. You guys ever see like typical movie, and this is movie bullshit, but this unfortunately works similarly in real life from what I understand. There's like a bad guy running around and you like give a gun to some lady and you're like, oh, if he comes around, shoot him. She's just like, she is not Delta. That does not qualify. It does not help to be freaked out at all. It's, here's a problem. What's the solution? In addition to Delta Force guys and Navy SEALs and special operators around the world, you won't see top CEOs lose it too often either. For example, Sam Altman, the founder and director of OpenAI, literally recently got fired by his own board He didn't post hateful shit on social media. He could have. He didn't email tons of folks hateful vitriol. He could have. He was devastated. Imagine getting fired from the company you gave birth to with huge ambitions to change the whole world. He picked himself up. He calmly reached out to folks close to him to work on next steps. That's what he did. He was on a podcast talking about this whole process. And after a not so long time, really just like about a week or two, he was unfired, and those people who fired him left, and they were no longer on the board at OpenAI. So he won that one in a big way. And speaking of CEOs, the CEO for RP Strength, Renaissance Periodization, aka RP, a company that I'm involved in with fitness, my co-founder and CEO, and I'm not the CEO, Mr. Nick Shaw, and he only prefers to be called Mr. Nick Shaw. It's kind of a weird formality thing. I don't like to broach the subject. He's real pissed if I ever talk about him. That's a joke, by the way. CEO Nick Shaw, him and I have been in business together for over 10 years, 12, I think, at this point. I used to watch Nick get worried and frustrated at most business problems. This was not ideal for the company, and Nick became aware of it, and he realized it was a bad thing. So he dove into the leadership literature, books and books and books and books about leadership and mindfulness. Like I've never seen anyone dive in. He must have read over 100 books on the subject by this point. It's insane. It was a years-long effort. And with that immersion and that practicing in the real world from the lessons learned through the books, Nick made quantum leaps in staying calm and rational in almost every situation. Not only was he himself calm and rational, he now had the ability to keep others on the team calmer and more rational during problem presentations than they otherwise would have been. And he did this by leading by example and himself staying centered. Like you're freaking out. You look at your CEO and he's like, all right, well, what else you got? And you're like, why are you not freaking out? He's like, well, I think we're work to a solution. And you're like, I guess that's what we're going to do. Remember, if the CEO is freaking out, Jesus Christ, if you wanted to freak out and you're underneath the CEO, hey, time for everyone to freak out. So Nick's leading by example. He can and has affirmed others on the team that staying calm is a virtue and we got to try to do it. Like, hey, all right, I see where you're coming from. Let's take a look at this step by step. And he'll give folks actionable tasks so that they don't have to worry and freak out. And instead they have something to do. He'd be like, hey, no worries. Why don't you look through this set of assets, see which ones fit our company brand the best, get back to me and we'll take a look. Something like that. And he ascended in his leadership abilities like crazy because of this process. And RP, our company, runs like it never has. Employee and shareholder confidence is higher than ever. Everyone is doing their best to generate value and is super motivated. And everyone gets along really, really well because conflict almost never spills into emotions, just to the next rational action, kind of no matter what. And if and when things do spill into emotion, which happens sometimes, Nick, if he's around, and other people on the team, if they're around, rein it in real quick, like never before. And it's on to solution. Now, this realization that the freakout is stupid and yields nothing good, and that not freaking out is great and yields everything good, is real tough to swallow, especially when it's happening to you. One of the main reasons for this is because emotive responses, emotional vomit, often, always, mostly feel natural. Almost always feel natural, the emotive responses. I sounded like, Scott, didn't I sound like Donald Trump really quick there? Yeah. The emotive responses, I love them. They almost always feel natural. Vote for me, 2024. They don't just feel natural. They feel downright righteous. No, I have been wronged. I should be angry. Fuck all these people, etc., etc., etc. I've done this myself numerous times. I did this last week. But they're almost always and almost everywhere, these freakouts, a step backwards. Imagine an NBA All-Star being thrown off by hecklers from the stands. You just basically never hear about that because they don't even hear motherfuckers because they're so professional and in line with doing what they're doing they're not trying to freak out. They're just trying to ball. Problem, solution. Once you deeply realize that the frustration, that the freakout has no legitimate place in the problem-solving equation, once you deeply, deeply realize this, you can work on shutting down temptations into freakouts as soon as the problem hits. Or, if you do freak out, rein it in as quickly and logically as you can. But this is easier said than done. So you have to realize it's a problem. If you don't realize that freaking out is another problem added to the problem, there's not much I can tell you that's going to help you. Because next time you freak out, you're going to be like, I should be freaking out. And I'm like, okay, didn't read this part or didn't listen to that part of the YouTube video. But if you deeply realize, yes, I have examined my own life history. I've taken a look at the people around me. I've read some literature. I've even watched some movies. And I realized like the freak out ain't helping nobody. Once you deeply realize this, then you're ready to start trying it in real life, but you don't succeed right away. Easier said than done, which is why you need step 2. So step 1 is realization. Step 2 is practice. Knowing to cool your freakouts is a big deal, but you aren't so good at it yet because you just don't have a lot of experience in it. You have a lot of experience in freaking out. You're really well trained to do that. And the problem with that experience is that your neural networks, they'll teach you whatever it is you're learning, and they don't really value judge your learning for you. So if in lifting you do a technique wrong for 10 months and then someone shows you how to do it right, and then they leave, you're just subconsciously going to revert back to the bad technique. In just the same way, if you're used to freaking out about problems, when a problem comes up and you're like, logically, I know it's not a good idea to freak out, but your neural networks have been trained on whatever, how old you are, 27 years of problems. And almost every time they go to freak out, as soon as the problem hits, they're like, yeah, logical, forebrain, got it, noted. But what do we usually do here, fellas? And the brain's like, freak out. You're like, woo, party, roar, and then self-pity, and then crying and tears and throwing things at walls. So you're actually, all of us, are to some extent pre-programmed through evolution and pre-programmed or post-trained on a lot of data set of problems. We have a lot of problem detection leads to freak out. And so not only is it evolutionarily natural for you to freak out, it's something you've been doing a while, so you're well practiced at it. Well practiced at the wrong thing. It's easy to think you'll handle shit all cool, because logically, you know, it's a good idea when there's no shit to handle. It's another thing to actually have it hit you in real life and actually get it done in the right way. When you do realize, though, that freakouts are stupid, you can start trying to freak out less. Some of these hits in these problems, you'll fumble, you'll stumble, you'll fall. No big deal. You'll freak out to a certain degree for a certain amount of time. But you'll eventually get yourself together, like you always do, and take logical action. Okay, I'm done crying, I'm done screaming, I'm done slamming the phone. What do I do now? Over weeks, months, and years of you practicing your newfound realization that the freakout should be diminished as much as possible, how quickly you get over the frustration hump will improve, especially if you are mindful of each freakout. As you're freaking out, you're like, I know this is bad. It feels so right, but it's wrong. And as you work to switch gears to calm logic, as soon as you detect the freakout, this kind of training sets in and your neural networks alter and alter and alter and alter. That's how habits are formed. After some time of this, when smaller stuff comes up, you might not freak out at all anymore. Took a burrito out of the microwave, looked over at something flashing over there, accidentally did this with the plate, pushed the plate down, burrito fell on the ground. Freaking out's dope, but I promise you it has nothing to do with the burrito getting back on your plate. So you quickly go, oh shit, you get the burrito, you kind of look under it, you're like, no, there's dog shit on the floor. I have a dog and I never clean my floor. Fuck him, I just let him shit on the floor, who cares? So you throw that burrito out, you're like, well, it's $1.99 spent. You get another frozen burrito out of your freezer, you put it on the plate in the microwave, you go like this, and the next time it comes out of the microwave, you go, okay, circus trick time. And you take two hands, you put the plate down, and you eat alone at your lonely dinner table because you're microwave burritos and you have no one in your life. Sorry, that was a memory of mine from one day ago. So at small stuff like, oh shit, I just dropped a piece of food, you might not freak out anymore after lots and lots of practice. Once that habit not to freak out is instilled, that habit grows and reinforces itself. And then as you freak out less, you're learning to freak out less and learning to freak out less and learning to freak out less. It's a positive feedback loop. And that gives you the reinforcement training for your brain for not freaking out about every problem, and you're no longer freaking out much. So it's an awesome, awesome thing with smaller problems. Bigger problems, at first, you might not be able to not freak out at all, but you might be able to reel in freakouts about bigger problems within minutes versus typically used to reel them in within hours. Ideally, as you reel in your problem and your emotions, you do this all to yourself without letting the frustration spread to family, friends, teammates, you name it. My wife knows this about me, that if I'm angry or upset or doing the freak out, almost always I'm just quieter. And the Russian facial expressions do its thing. I never yell at anyone. I almost never like lash out in a personal way or some stupid shit like that. I used to. Holy shit. But at least I keep calm externally. Internally, I'm not calm. I'm like raging, psychotic nightmare internally. But then after a few minutes, I'm like, okay, Israetel, how do we solve this? Versus hours and days of internal turmoil. So we're making some progress. And if you get really, really good at this sort of thing, and you work in a team, and almost all of us do in some capacity, you may be able to calm the team down when they're freaking out so that you can all go into solution mode as soon as possible. Because this might sound crazy to you, but solution mode is the only mode that actually fixes the problem. Again, it is worth, I think, me repeating this. Frustration, anger, vitriol, feeling exasperated do not solve any problems whatsoever. And they are their own problems. So solution is the next thing you need to be thinking about after problem hits. And if you practice and practice and practice, your brain starts to get a little better at doing that, and then a lot better at doing that. And all of a sudden, you just kind of are normally chill, and when problems come up, you're kind of doing pretty well with them. Once you can be calm and logical in the face of most problems, especially problems at work, at school, for example, you can mostly or wholly get rid of step number 2. You can get rid of the freak out the vast majority of the time. And at this point, you may no longer have a negative affect, frustration, anger, feeling of being blindsided, etc., coupled with your problems. You only have problem detection and then problem solution. And because solving every problem makes your life better, you can begin to see problems a little bit differently. You can begin to see problems not as frustrating things because you have excised frustration through habit from your problem-solving procedure. You can begin to see problems as opportunities for improvement and betterment. Because remember, when you solve a problem, that makes you improved and it makes you better. Problems are detections, little lights in the sea to tell you there's a solution here. That's what really ends up happening. And if you really get into this state of mindfulness and give this a lot of thought and a ton of practice, I have not been able to do this quite yet. I'm always working on it. Over time, you can see problems as happy things. Opportunities for you to show off your problem-solving skills, like, you know what I'm saying, get that swag going, to improve them with practice, and basically, as you improve, your problem-solving skills also improve. So not only are you showing off your problem-solving skills, but they're getting better at you using them properly. And it's a chance, each problem, to make the world better. Because once a problem has presented itself, it's really like, if you fix this, the world would get better in some small or large way. So now problems, instead of frustrating, terrible things, are things where you show off your skills, improve your skills, and make the world a better place. What's not to love? All of a sudden, problems are looking pretty goddamn good. If you get to this point or somewhere in this area with most problems, at least problems at work or at school where logic is really the only way to solve them, you have ascended mentally in a way that few people even know exists, and the few that know exists, even fewer appreciate. Because if you love having a good time when there's no problems around, and you love solving problems when they come up because they give you an opportunity to flex your swag a little bit, get better at that, and solve problems that help you and help the world, you're only ever two different kinds of happy, more or less. It's the kind of happiness of solving problems and the kind of happiness of having no problems to solve. If they're both happy, holy crap. And since problem solving creates value for the future, and not having any problems is already really dope, this is kind of the ultimate psychological disposition to all of life. No joke, maybe not all of life, but a huge part of life. If you ever meet someone that, when presented with a problem, simply smiles and begins to work out a logical solution and then execute it, and then when they don't have a problem, they're smiling and enjoy not having problems, you kind of met God. And you can become more godlike in this respect yourself. Now, it's all about improving on the margins, getting a little better over time, not even linearly. Sometimes you'll backslide. Sometimes you yell at people. It's okay. You're not likely to become a problem-loving, step 2 freakout skipping Delta Force monk CEO anytime soon. Though Nick Shaw is both a former Delta Force commander and a practicing Buddhist monk and a CEO. I'm kidding about 2 of those things. Figure out which ones. But if you work just on the margins, just by a little bit, at going faster from freakout to actual problem solving, and faster from problem detection to solution work without freaking out at all, you're going to become more and more over time 2 things. One is less burdened by the emotional drain and pain of problems. And 2, way more effective at solving problems. I can give you better life advice than to pursue your own Cold War against the freakout step, but I can't give you much better advice than that. Skipping the freakout, letting the better angels of your nature step forward, seeing a problem for what it is, a logical construct that has a potential solution, and doing your best to figure out what that solution is and then execute it, is a skill set that is at the very base of high-level competency. And if you can do that more than you do it today, more than yesterday, more than the year before, your life is going to be 2 things: filled with problems you're better at solving and don't have as bad of a time solving, and fewer problems in general. And that is amazing. Plenty of movies, plenty of TV, plenty of books where the people that freak out, the Hulk, for example, are the ones that win. They get the job done. Like, don't freak the Hulk out. He'll beat you up and then you'll save the world. That's how almost all of life does not work. In the real world, cyborg energy is the best thing you can do. Problem, solution. Just like that, just like a machine. Amazing things will happen if you lean into that versus leaning into, no, I should be pissed and I should be upset and these people, blah, 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 blah. That helps no one. So give this some thought, give it a shot. And on the teeniest little problem you have next in your life, try to breathe through it and be like, okay, Dr. Mike made a video. Solution. I got to find a solution. It's okay. I'm freaking out. I'm just going to can it, but I got to solve it. You'll get better and better and better, and bigger problems will become ones where you don't freak out as much. Because look, like, you get in a car accident, your leg's over there. Yes, you have my permission to freak out. Is it a good idea? No, it's still not a good idea. But like, I can understand it, right? But after a while of solving little problems in the best way possible, which is skipping the freak out, you now get better at moderate sized problems and then eventually even really big problems. And remember, your gold star is something like a Delta Force operator, special forces soldier, who if you're like, hey, listen, if you don't disable or you don't conquer this facility and disable their nukes, the world could end, or like London could be destroyed. To guys like that, they go, got it. Show me the coordinates. And you're like, what the fuck? Aren't you going to freak out? No, they don't freak out, basically ever. You want to be like them? You want to be like the top CEOs? You want to be like people that get shit done? Give this some thought. Try to be as calm and cool and collected. And if you freak out, realize it's okay, I freaked out. Now weave back in the calm and get to solving problems. Over time, you're going to get better and better and better. And I promise you, your life will improve substantially. I'm still waiting for my life to improve, but my psychiatrist says it's just a matter of finding the right dose at this point. I've been Dr. Mike. I'll see you guys next time.